Okay.
Everywhere we go, people want to know who we are and where we come from. So who are you and where do you come from?
I'm Claire from County Clare. So very easy one to remember. I'm a mum. I have 2 grown-up girls, both in university. Very proud of both of them. I work full-time. I run a business. Have a little bit of a thing going on social media, and I love all things food and travel.
I love that intro. And in that intro, we've 1, we had a false start, and 2, we have some noise in the background because I'm still getting my back garden done. But Claire has come, as she said, all the way from Shannon.
Yeah.
And Paul was like, put it off, but I was really eager to sit down with you. So let's start from the very beginning. And I did come across you. Everyone said to me, where do you find your guests? I find them on Instagram. I follow them on Instagram. And then little snippets through that grid. And you go, oh.
Yeah.
Oh. So start from the very beginning with you. Growing up, what was like? Who was in the house?
So I'm the youngest of 5. My mum and dad stayed together their entire lives. My mother passed away when I was quite young, but they were married 36 years when she passed away. Go on.
How does that work?
How do you mean?
Is that a stupid question? They were together for 36 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But I was in my early 20s when she passed away.
Grand,
so I was young enough losing her. But I'm the youngest of 5, like I said. We grew up in a little village in 6 Mile Bridge in County Clare. My mother was originally from Westminster in London, so big change for her. My dad's family were originally Cork, so he was grand, back and beyond, that's where he came from. Very different world for her. She grew up in the 60s in London. It was a very vibrant, crazy time. And then she ends up in a little village with less than 1,000 people. So, very odd.
That must have been mental for her.
Oh, crazy. Absolutely crazy. I don't think she ever fully settled into that world. Yeah. Like, she would go backwards and forwards to the UK at least 3 to 4 times a year throughout her lives, visiting family and friends. I just don't think she ever loved a little village life. She liked the idea of it, but the reality, I think, was hard for her. Yeah.
What was she like?
Very friendly, very outgoing, very well spoken, very career driven. You know, she worked in accounts, but she had so many side hustles going. She was a dressmaker, she was a cook, she'd done it all, like literally everything. And in today's world, she probably would have done social media, she probably would have done a pod.
Yeah.
Like, loved to always have her finger on the pulse and doing stuff. So really, really good. Like, running a house, 5 kids, like she kept the show going and she made it look so easy. Like, you know, I look at her and I go, how? Like, I have 2 girls. And I'm like, life is so crazy. But she just made it look effortless.
What happened to her?
She had heart and lung disease. She was sick my entire life. She smoked. Terrible thing. But she also inherited kind of hereditary heart and lung issues from her father. So her father passed away when she was quite young. She lost him when she was only 17.
Wow.
And she lost her mother 6 months later. So she was... Before her 18th birthday, she'd lost both her parents and she was an only child. So it was really hard. Yeah, she had a tough start in life. And you would never know it. If you met her, you would never have known she'd had a tough start because she was so positive. She loved life, loved, like I said, travelling backwards and forwards to the UK. We didn't really go on foreign holidays back then, but we did go to Butlins in the UK. We had a holiday home down in Ballyhaig and Kerry. Like, we had a great time with it, but she lived life to the fullest. Like, you'd never know. You'd never know she had a tough time, you know, because... she never let it show. So.
What effect did the loss of your mum have on you?
Oh, huge. And I probably even get emotional thinking about it. Huge. We were buds. Like, I don't want to get emotional, but we were buds. She was everything. I don't want to get upset.
But just take your time with it. Don't take your time with it. Because it's how many years?
Oh, God, it's a long time now. She is gone. 22 years. So, still.
And isn't it mad that we try and push grief? We try and, push grief away. We try and, you probably had to be there for your dad, you probably had to be there for your siblings, that you don't deal with your grief.
I think, well, it was traumatic in the fact that the fallout after she passed away it wasn't good. It wasn't a good time. We discovered I knew before she passed that the man I grew up with my dad wasn't my biological father. Nobody else knew that. And that came out shortly after she passed away.
Okay, take a minute. Take a breath. Just some tissues there.
Thank you.
See, I always put tissues, and then when I don't put tissues...
And I brought my makeup bag because I know I'm an emotional person. And the sunglasses, I'm not going outside the door.
I mean, it's mad because then when I don't put the tissues down, I'd be like, shit, where's my tissues? I need a tissue.
No, and I'm a very emotional person.
Yeah.
I really am.
Do you know, was that always you? Because it wasn't always me, but now it's me. I'm so emotional.
No, it was. Yeah. I remember we had the holiday home down in Ballyhide.
Yeah.
And we'd go down there for the whole summer.
Yeah.
So school would finish, the car would be packed, we'd be down there for the 3 months. We didn't see sight of 6 Mile Bridge for the 3 months. But my dad at the time used to go up and down for work to Shannon.
Right.
And when he was leaving on a Monday, I was devastated. I'd be crying in the window as he was leaving. And honest to God, we weren't that close.
Yeah.
But I'd be like, he's going.
Oh my God.
So no, I've always been an emotional person. Yeah.
So your mum, if I can, your mum passes.
Yeah.
You're in your 20s. You're probably just finding your feet, finding the world.
Well, I already had Ellen at that stage.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so I was quite young having Ellen, and I had her. Things hadn't worked out with her dad, but it was not a bad relationship. Like, we were grand. We're, to this day, we still get on. Do you know what I mean? He calls into the house every second day on his way to work. Like, the relationship there is very friendly. You know what I mean?
How old were you having her?
17.
Okay.
So I was very young. Yeah.
So no wonder you and your mum were so close.
Yeah. No, and my mother was young having my eldest brother. So they often say history potentially repeats itself. But I suppose she had gone through a very traumatic time before she had my brother. And she had met my dad, or who we thought was my dad, just before her mother had passed away. So yeah, maybe her life would have been different if her circumstances had been different. But yeah.
So she stayed with your dad then?
Yeah. Stayed with him.
Right.
But obviously... I thought everything was fine.
Yeah.
Everyone thought everything was fine.
So how did you find out that he wasn't your dad?
So there had been conversations around it. I remember them speaking about it around the time I was pregnant on Ellen. I remember going in, having a blood test, and I was O negative. And my dad was like, how did that work? You know, it doesn't work. You need this and this for that to happen. Anyway, there was conversations, but I didn't pay any attention whatsoever to them. And I remember after I'd separated from Ellen's dad, I started dating a guy, and he was like, your siblings and you, like, you're so different. Like, he says, doesn't make sense. Like, you're so different. I was like, are we that different? And then I was like, I suppose we're a little bit different. And then I was working with one of my sisters, and everybody said, you're lying. There's no way you're sisters. And I was like, wait, there's 2 years between. We're sisters. Yeah. Like, and everyone's like, no, not possible. So I remember I just started asking my mum. I was like, you know, who do I take after? Like, because I wasn't like him, and and my sisters and my brothers took after my dad, and I just thought I took after my mother. And I was like, why is it so different? Like, you know, everyone keeps. And over the years, she kind of told me. She told me the story. So yeah,
take that back. Take a breath.
Yeah,
with that one. So she told you.
Yeah. Now, shortly before she died, she told me the full story. But I knew maybe 12 months before she passed away that he definitely wasn't my father. But I didn't know who was my father.
Did your father, who you thought was your father, did he know he wasn't your father?
He knew, but he didn't know for very long. He had only known for a short period before me. So that conversation had obviously carried on from when I had Ellen. It sparked questions, and he kept asking the questions. And when the sicker she got, the more I suppose she felt she had to tell people. So yeah.
So then after she
passed... And he didn't say anything.
Did he not say anything?
He said nothing to anybody at that stage. It was only after she passed he said it. He told everybody. There was an argument one day, and he told everyone.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
We can. I'm having to get emotional again. But yeah, we can.
So you're going through the absolute heartache of losing your mum. And we'll just take our time with it. And as I said, there's no pressure at all. Like, you don't have to talk about anything here today. And then, was he a loving man? Growing up?
We weren't very close.
Okay.
We were never very close. I always just thought you got on with one parent more than the other. I got on really well with my mum, and my sisters got on really well with my dad. And I just thought that's how it was. I thought maybe you just navigate more to one to the other, but we weren't super close, even though I'd be crying, believe in Ballyhide, but we were never massively close, no. So we got on, but yeah, we weren't that close.
And as you got older then, and you didn't know, like, did that change? And the only reason I'm asking that is because and I've spoke about this before, my mum was a little bit cruel with me.
Okay.
When, like, I was hers, but she had postnatal depression and she didn't accept me. So the older I got, she got a little bit cruel with me.
No, I would say my dad, and I still call him my dad, he, like, if there was ever an argument, say, between me and one of my siblings, he would always side with one of those. It would always be me, you know, even if they'd done wrong, he'd be giving out to me, and I'd see them laughing at the fact they kind of got one over on him and he was blaming me again. So maybe it came out in that kind of way, but I wouldn't have said cruel as such. But just little things like that, you would notice. You go, why is he blaming me again? Like, why doesn't he ever listen to me? And I think maybe he had an inkling. Yeah. Maybe.
And then how soon after your mum passed does he tell everyone, and what happens in that moment?
So she passed away on St. Patrick's Day, 17th of March. And by the Maybank holiday weekend, the argument had happened and he told everyone. So it was literally weeks. Yeah, very soon.
And how did that change your relationship?
Oh, it was a disaster. Yeah.
And your siblings?
Everything just changed.
Did it? You're okay. Take your time.
Yeah, everything changed. I would say in the very early stages, people tried, but as time went on, just more and more distant. And I haven't spoken to any of them in at least 15 years.
I'm sorry, Claire.
So sorry. So yeah, I have no contact. And I don't know why. Everybody deals with grief differently, I suppose, but somehow they turned my mother into a monster because she had hurt him. And I was like her. They wanted nothing to do with me because I reminded them of her.
That's so unfair.
It was hard because I had nieces. I had relationships with them. Do you know, I was godmother to two of them. I had stood for one of them for their confirmation. Like, I was very close to them. One of the girls practically lived with me the whole time I had Ellen. There was only 8 months between them. Everyone thought I had two girls. I only had one. And yeah, it all changed.
Did you walk away or did they walk away?
They walked away.
Where did you go?
They all left. One by one, they left. I have one sibling still in Limerick and the rest are in the UK.
Really? Is it easier that they're in the UK?
I think so. Yeah, because when they were here, like, they would literally walk past me in the street. Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I met my husband in that period of times. So you can imagine. A terrible time to be getting into a relationship. And in hindsight, I wouldn't have. But you do.
So you're living on your own with your daughter?
With Ellen.
With Ellen. And
she was seeing her father every kind of second weekend. But even at that time, he left us down. He decided to move to America for a couple of months. Didn't tell us he was going. Got a phone call one day going, oh, he's not here. He won't be here for the next little while. He's gone to America. Where's he gone? Don't know. Nobody could tell me where he was gone for 4.5 months.
Oh my God.
So I spent that whole summer into the autumn going, where the hell? Like, because Ellen had obviously lost her grandmother. She'd also lost her cousin. She'd lost her granddad. Like, whole family had fallen apart. And her dad vanishes off the face of the earth. Do you know? And like I say, we get on now. But at that time, I was like, you are such a cruel, evil person to do this. Like, at the time you're needed most, you're gone. But I've always said, look, he's a good person as a whole. I've always said he's like an extravagant uncle rather than a dad. Do you know what I mean? Like he comes in and he's great. Christmas is great. He'll give whatever. If I said she needed something, he'd do cartwheels to make sure she has it. But on the day to day, no, just not there. Do you know? My makeup looks a mess now, so thank you so much for that.
No, it doesn't. And you can't really see it because it's bright. If it was dark out, you'd see it totally. But
okay,
right now you're fine.
Thank you.
So going back to your dad then. So did he go to the UK as well?
He did. He met another woman very soon after my mother. And it was actually the argument at that May Bank Holiday weekend was around this new woman, because I went into what was the family home and she was walking around the family home with a dressing gown belonging to my mother on. Now, the dressing gown wasn't just a dressing gown. It actually meant an awful lot. My mother had gone to my oldest brother's wedding in Singapore the August previous.
Okay.
It took weeks to get approval for her to be able to fly. The doctors played down how unwell she was to get Singapore Airlines to fly her from Heathrow out to Singapore, because she kept getting refused.
Yeah.
She had to pay for a second seat to carry her equipment, all the rest of it. So it was a big feat to get out to Singapore, but she was getting out there. She was very unwell. She even made her outfit for the wedding, because like I said, she was a dressmaker. She was so delighted to be going out there for the wedding. So it was a big trip. And when she went out there, you know, they do this thing where they give gifts to the elders. And one of the gifts was from my brother's wife, was this robe, this dressing gown to my mother. My mother didn't really wear it. She just kind of had it because she didn't want to ruin it. Like it was such a prized possession of hers. And this woman was walking around the house in this dressing gown. And I was distraught. Like I was like, who is she? Well, I knew who she was. But I was like, what's she doing? Walking around the house. And it was like, the minute my mother had passed away, my dad had made the house kind of like a shrine to her. Every photo that was ever had suddenly popped up. Like he was devastated. And then all of a sudden there's this woman walking around the house and everything belonged to my mother, like photo wise, has now vanished. I was like, so that's how the argument came about. So, and that's why, and he was like, well, I'm pissed off with her because, you know what I mean? Why should I care? Why? You know, so I get it, but I don't get it, if that makes sense. You know, I get he has every right to be angry, but I don't believe that was a nice way to do it. Do you know? No, I think that was a bit unfair.
And none of the siblings picked up for you or supported you?
No. Even my eldest sister, Sandra, who I would have thought I was very close to growing up. She was 9 years older than me. She was like a second mother in the house. No, not at all. Not at all. And I was absolutely distraught by that. And I asked her so many times, like, why? And I never got an answer.
I know, that's okay.
So no, never an answer from her. She just wouldn't give me one. So that was it.
You're going to have so much relief after this.
I think so. I think so.
You'll have a bit of relief after it. Because I do love a good cry, I have to say. I
do too, but I hate getting emotional in front of people. I'm like, no, don't want to do that. But I am a very emotional person.
And this is why Paul was like, I don't think you should be doing this podcast with builders in the background, but they're going to be gone soon, so it will stop.
And I am aware they're there, but I can't see them.
Yeah, so it's fine. Like, it's not like you're sitting that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, can I ask you then, did you then, you said like with your husband that you in hindsight, you wouldn't, did you just cling on to something else to try and find a relationship, or were you kind of seeing him at that moment?
So I met him at the Christmas of the year my mother passed away. So she passed away in March. This happened in May. The fallout kind of carried on from May through to the autumn. So it didn't happen overnight. It was slower than that. Ellen's dad vanished off the face of the earth. And I went out over the Christmas and I was with some friends, and Ellen was now inside in Limerick with his family, her dad's family, because he still had both his grandparents, his parents. Like, there was a big family there, and they were just mad about Ellen, and they were really supportive. Like, his grandmothers especially, like, they were just, I don't know if you know many Limerick people, but old Limerick people, new Limerick people I love, but the old generation are just the nicest people you will ever meet, and they just wanted to mind her and they wanted to mind me. They were just lovely. Like, they couldn't have been more supportive. And so she was in Limerick. I went out, met him in a nightclub of all bloody places, like, you know. But anyway, and I got chatting to him, and he was like this just breath of fresh air. Like, everything was positive, everything was lovely. Like, yeah, he was just brilliant. Like, and I was like, oh my God, nobody's been nice to me for months. And yeah. Sorry. So you do.
Don't say sorry.
So I think in hindsight, I wouldn't have got into a relationship at that point because I was in a bad place. And while I say I think I might have noticed, I actually don't think I would have noticed the man I would have ended up with because he was a very convincing, nice person. Do you know? And even now when I look back, there weren't red flags other than he was probably too nice. That was it. But
it's like what Priscilla said when to stop domestic violence. She was like, when I was married, she's like, now we have words like trigger, red flag. She's like, a red flag for me was what I seen at match day at Crow Park.
no, but that's a fact. They weren't words that were used.
Yeah.
Even the coercive control, that's a new word. Hearing that somebody's narcissistic, I didn't know that existed pre-2017. Like, just didn't know. They weren't words that were used. I didn't know half of the things that were happening to me until it started to come apart. And now I look back and I go, oh my God. Like, it's like somebody turns a switch on, you're like, how did I not see that? Yeah. He had me convinced in the end that I was abusing him. My recall was wrong. I was losing my mind, and other times then he would make out that he thought he had like dementia or crazy stuff. You just couldn't imagine.
Start from the start.
Okay.
Then. So you meet him in the nightclub.
Yeah.
Then at what point then did you fall fast? Did the relationship develop really quickly?
It evolved very quickly again, we're told. That's terrible now. But back then, who knew? Who knew? And I was in a very vulnerable place. And we know now that if you're in a vulnerable place, people like him will find you. And it's why I'm single right now. I'm afraid that somebody would do it again. Like, I'd be afraid that I wouldn't see it again. Do you know what I mean? But probably it won't happen again because I probably never... Anyway. But, so I met him in the nightclub. He was living with me within 6 weeks. Practically living. He'd go home the odd time, but practically living within 6 weeks. Yeah, it was quick. And he had a big family. They lived in a beautiful home. Everything looked lovely. It was only the longer I was there did I realise how unlovely it all was. Because his household was worlds apart to what mine was growing up. Like, it wasn't very loving. They didn't go on holidays. Like, the parents didn't even like each other. To this day they don't. They don't speak to each other from one end of the week to the next. Like, it's a weird household. So, but on the surface, it looked lovely. Big, beautiful bungalow just down from Bunratty, double garage, stables. Like, the dad has his own businesses. There's 2 beautiful cars in the drive, 7 children, all doing okay. Like, it looked picture perfect. It looked picture perfect.
And was the relationship picture perfect at the start?
It was absolutely incredible. The first couple of months, not an inkling. Like, trips to the seaside, everything we did, everything was fun. Everything was fun, everything was exciting, everything was just brilliant. There was no drama. Nothing was a problem, everything. Like, you'd wake up in the morning, do you want a cup of tea? Like, everything was just lovely. It was just lovely, yeah. So 7 months of bliss, yeah.
And then what happened?
Sorry, I say 7 months bliss. It was actually over a year of bliss. I was 7 months pregnant on Danielle. It was Christmas again. So we've got a whole year.
How old is Ellen at this age?
So Ellen is 28 now, so she would have been 7.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, trying to remember. She's old enough now, like. But, so we've gone to the following Christmas. We were doing up, he had moved in with me. We'd done up the garden, say, during the summer. So this is how quickly things were going. He was helping me do up the garden. We got the outside of the house painted. I was pregnant from May. I was pregnant. Yeah, May. Was I pregnant in May? May, June. We knew I was pregnant from then. And we started doing up the house, getting everything ready. And it was on the run up to Christmas. We started decorating the kitchen. It was just painting and, stuff like that. There was nothing like major. There was no tiling or any of that. But, and he said, look, let's have my family around for Christmas. Because he knew my family wouldn't be there. So he was like, let's invite my parents around and my brothers and sisters. And I was like, okay, big ass and 7 months pregnant, but I like to cook, let's do it. So we did. We invited them all around and they brought their partners. So there was a gang of them came for Christmas dinner. It was a lot to be taken on when you're 7 months pregnant. And we were still decorating the kitchen on Christmas Eve, getting it back to normal, getting it ready. And so it was tiring, it was exhausting. Had a great Christmas Day though. All went well. They arrived, you know, his brothers chipped in. Everybody kind of helped. But as soon as dinner and the day was kind of done, and actually at that stage, my brother who's the third child, so he's the middle one, he had actually come out on Christmas Day for a few hours. So it wasn't 100% severed with him at that stage. Like I said, it was a bit, throughout that autumn, it kind of all severed. And he came out for a few hours. And my husband's dad said to him, do you want me to give you a lift back into Shannon? Because we were out in 6 Mile Bridge at the time. And he said, oh yeah, I'll take the lift back into Shannon. So his dad brought him back into Shannon. And then he came back to the house and he said to my husband and everybody else, oh, we'll go down to Drumline for a few hours down to their house. And I said, Ellen's going to sleep now. Like it was 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, whatever. It was the evening anyway. I don't know, it could have been 9 o'clock. Can't remember the time. But I said, look, you know, it's late. She's going to want to go to sleep. I'm exhausted. Like I've been running around after everyone. I'm 7 months pregnant. I've been running around all day. We've been decorating all week. Like, need to stop. So I was like, you go down to Drumline. And they were like, okay, we'll go to Drumline. But I didn't expect him to go with them. I thought he'd stay and give me a hand to tidy up. Yeah. That's what I expected. I don't know, should I have expected that? But I did. Anyway, he went and I was kind of annoyed going, Jesus fucking Christ, like I've just catered for everyone all day. And I've been left the house in a heap, you know, trying to get Ellen settled, trying to deal with being 7 months pregnant. But I did, and it was fine. And I sat down on the sofa after getting everything done, and he turned back up at the house with his parents. And he said, I'm taking the car. And I was like, what do you mean you're taking the car? He goes, oh, I'm bringing the car down to Drumline. I was like, why are you bringing the car down to Drumline? He goes, that insurance you have in that car is not the right insurance. I went, what? I was like, of course it's the right insurance. The car is bloody insured. And what happened was, I had another car. And my dad, in that summer, had taken the car, because he used to be very good. He used to take my car on a Monday. I was spoiled rotten. He used to take it on a Monday, clean it, put petrol in it and bring it back to me.
Oh my God.
Like I was spoiled. And he'd taken it one Monday and he put diesel into a petrol car and he had driven it 3 miles home.
Oh God.
So it ended up in the garage and I ended up trading in that car and we got another car. But he thought because we bought the car, it was his car. Don't ask me how he didn't even drive at the time.
But people do that.
Yeah, he didn't even drive at the time. Like, so, like the house was mine. He was paying no rent. Do you know what I mean? And all of a sudden the car was his. And I was like, how does that work? I thought it was our car. He didn't drive at the time. I drove him in and out to work, things like that. Anyway, so he said, I'm taking the car. The insurance isn't right. And I was like, of course the insurance is right in the car. Like, you can ring them, but it was Christmas night. Yeah. You couldn't ring the insurance company on Christmas night. And he goes, no, my brother's looked at that. His brother Brian has looked at that and it's all wrong. It's false. Those documents are false. Your brother done those false documents for the car. And I was like, are you insane? Like, and he just came at me with this.
And is this typical of him to do these things, or was this like out of nowhere?
Out of the blue. No, I've lived these kind of scenarios 1,500 times since then. But this was the very first time. And his mum and his dad were there. So, and the three of them were shouting at me, telling me I was lying. And I was like, this is insane. And his mother's like, Kev John, just get your stuff, get out of here. She's this, she's that. And I was like, what is happening? Now, bear in mind, this was 2002 going into 2003. I had a mobile phone, but I had no credit on the mobile phone. Yeah. I'm in a house in 6 Mile Bridge, small little village. There's no house phone. The nearest public phone is a 10-minute walk away. Yeah. And I have Ellen upstairs asleep while all this is going on at me. And I was literally just shell-shocked. I didn't know what was happening. I couldn't leave the house because I couldn't leave Ellen there. I couldn't get somebody to come and help me. Like, I was stuck. And he started grabbing stuff and he left the house. And then an hour or so later came back again, started shouting at me again. Because I had said at that point, I said, there's no way you're taking that car. You know, I'm here with Ellen, I'm pregnant. Like,
if that happens, I
can't be stuck here with nobody and no transport. And so I wouldn't give them the keys. So they came back to try and get the keys, but he had a second key at that stage and he took the car. So that was it. 3 days later, I get a phone call saying, come down to Drumline. Kevin wants to talk to you. And I was like, okay.
Who rang you?
His brother Brendan. So said, come down to Drumline. And I had a good relationship with his brother Brendan at the time. And I was like, Brendan, I can't ever live that night that I just lived. And I was fuming. I was like, that's it. There's no way he's coming back inside this door. The man is a bloody lunatic. And his parents are, like, I'd never in my life witnessed a night like it. Like, it was just, and I was devastated, obviously. Like I was, as you see, I'm a very emotional person, but I was devastated by it. But I just couldn't figure it out. I couldn't understand how it went from like here, everything was fine, to like up here and everyone's screaming. Like,
and his mother and father were screaming at you as well.
His mother and father. Now, as I go along the story, you realize, like, it became like a Sunday ritual of his father's where he would come to the house and literally shout at me. It was just a thing he did. It was like he worked Tuesday to Saturday. He was bored at home by a Sunday evening and he'd be back at my door shouting at me on a Sunday. Like, it was insane.
Did he have daughters?
One daughter. Yeah. No, the house, as we go along, go on. The picture perfect house I thought it was. You quickly realise it wasn't. And
so did you go up to the...
I went up to the house.
Yeah.
Kevin wasn't there. And there was a table this size in the kitchen and I was on the chair here and his mother was down here and his dad was here and Brendan had gone. He'd gone down the hall to one of his rooms. I said there was a big bungalow, there was 7 kids, like it was a big house. And Larry his dad used to breed German Shepherds. He had one that he knew I wasn't exactly mad about. And he had the German Shepherd sitting next to me for the whole time. So I couldn't move. And his mother's sitting there going, Claire, just admit you're a bitch. Just admit you're this. Just admit you're that. I swear to God, this was between Christmas and New Year. I left the house at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, this went on for hours. Kevin came back into the house, twisted drunk, told me what a terrible woman I was, how brilliant the sister-in-laws were and how I wasn't a patch on any of them. And off to bed he went. And I was like, I can't stay here. I was like, I'm leaving. Now, Brendan had collected me. He told me to come down to the house. He had come to my house to collect me, to bring me to Drumline. I still didn't have the car. And so I got up to walk, to go down back home. And the roads, like, they're proper country roads. Like, there's no line in the middle of the roads. Like, you know, you can touch the hedges. Like, it's that kind of road. And we're 4 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't listen to anymore. Had to get up to leave. And Brendan came out after me to give me the lift home. But his dad was shouting at him, don't put her in the car. She's dangerous. Like, this is the... And Brendan's like, I can't leave her walk. Like, he was fighting my corner while his dad was shouting at him. So he dropped me home. And then over the next couple of days, Kevin rang, apologised, you know, shouldn't have happened. His parents got inside his head. None of it was him, blah. And I think over the course of that kind of week, I'd been on such an emotional kind of roller coaster. Somebody being nice to me again, I went, oh my God, it's over. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not knowing that this was obviously going to happen a million times afterwards. So Kevin came back to the house. Everything was fine for a couple of weeks. And then the dad starts arriving on the Sundays. And that carried on for a long time, like more than a year. He'd turn up at the house on a Sunday.
And what would he say to you?
He'd turn up at first. He'd have a cup of tea. He'd have a chat. Everything's fine. And then all of a sudden, he'd start picking a fight. He'd start saying, you know, what was Kevin eating during the week? Kevin's putting on an awful lot of weight, Claire. Claire, have you noticed he's putting on an awful lot of weight there? And stuff like that. You know, or Danielle at this stage had already been born. It's like, you know, you mollycoddle her too much. You give in to her. You can't be giving, like, everything. How clean the house was, everything. So it was like his dad, he was using his dad to kind of abuse me. He wasn't doing it, but he'd say, I can't stand up to him because he used to abuse me awfully as a child and this, that and everything else. Did it happen? I don't know. Likely to happen because his dad is an absolute head case. But I don't believe that's an excuse for the way he let his dad behave. Because
he never ever stood up to the dad?
Never stood up to the dad. No, never. Never told him to stop. Now, the mother, it didn't happen as much with, but it did happen on occasion. I remember Danielle was literally days old and she came into the house to tell me what a terrible person I was. Just admit you're a bitch. Just admit you're a liar. Because she was convinced I knew I was having a girl when I was pregnant on Danielle. She was convinced I'd asked the hospital. They told me, but I wouldn't tell anybody and I was hiding it from everybody. It's like, Winnie, I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. But even if I did, it's my business. Yeah. Like, nobody has a right to tell me I have to tell them anything about my pregnancy and my daughter. But anyway, and then things like cutting her hair if she had her and things, just stuff to annoy me. Do you know what I mean?
So stop that. See, that's, again, See this, and I think if I'm right in saying that this is coercive control, like stuff like that, like taking the child off, and she got her hair cut. So talk about that.
She was only a toddler. She was only a baby. She barely had hair. And she took her for a few hours. And now when I say she took her, I could count on one hand the number of times this woman looked after Danielle. And she wrote in a notebook the minute she collected her, the minute she dropped her back, and she'd bill me for those minutes and hours. So I'm not even joking. But she took her and she cut her hair. And she came back and I was like, "When you've cut her hair?" And she was like, "You're absolutely fucked in the head. I did not touch that child's hair." And I said, "Kevin, the child's hair is cut." And we didn't have smartphones like we have them now. We didn't take photos every 12 hours a day. Like, you know, it was more select than that. And you still were putting the little cameras in or the little films in and getting them back. Like, photos were different back then. And I was like, "Kevin, her hair has been cut." Like, you know when your child's hair has been cut. But they convinced me I was imagining things. The hair wasn't cut. You're a lunatic. And then I was the worst in the world because I had upset his mother. Yeah, I know. You couldn't make it up.
And at any point, you went on to marry him, did you?
I went on to marry him. I did. He had a falling out with his family.
That's what I want to. At any point did they step away?
Yeah, they did. They did. So he had a falling out with them. It was his brother's 21st. Trying to remember, he's 8 years younger than Kevin. I'm trying to remember the timeline because it's kind of a bit of a blur. But I'd say Danielle was about 2.5 or 3 when they stepped away, and they were gone till she was 7. So there was a good period of time, and it was coming up to his brother's 21st. And every time they had an event, whether it was a wedding anniversary, an engagement, a funeral, whatever it was, I told you I like to cook. And they'd always have me do the catering for everybody. But it was coming up to his brother's 21st, and they were like, "Claire, will you look after this, this and this?" And I said, "Well, I'll help, but I'm not doing it single-handedly." Because I'd done an event for the parents, one of their wedding anniversaries, the August previous. And I think there was 150 people invited to this event. And me, in a normal standard household kitchen, had to cater for this bloody event. And it took me days of organising and getting everything set up and running around all day. And I said, "I'm not doing that again, but I will definitely help." And I was the worst in the world because I was letting him down for his 21st. But the reality was, his parents wanted to put on the big show everybody how great they were, but they didn't want to put their fingers in their pockets to do a single thing for it. So, yeah, that's why they fell out. There was a big, massive argument, and he fell out with them at that point, which looked like he was standing up for me.
Yeah.
I don't know, was he? Or did he just feel like fighting with them? I have no idea. But that's when everything kind of imploded. I wouldn't cater for the 21st. Big fight broke out, and that was it. They were gone for a couple of years. Yeah.
And what was it like while they were gone? What was he like while they were gone?
He wasn't perfect. He definitely wasn't perfect. But he was definitely calmer. Like, there was blow-ups, but they weren't that often. Like, you could go a long time. But how he'd give out to the girls, or his reactions to things were still not proportionate to the crime, if you like. You know what I mean? Like, if a child takes something out of the press, like you say, you know, you're having dinner in 5 minutes, you don't ground them for a week, or you don't send them to a room, or you don't scream the house down for an hour. Like, the reactions were still... So you were always aware that at any moment you could wind him up. Do you know what I mean? So you were kind of treading, but you were hopeful. And there was always these moments where you go, you know, if I get that promotion and work, everything will calm down. You know, that person's after doing that to me. When that doesn't happen, things will be better. And then it got to the point, because you won't marry me, I'm insecure. And that's where this comes from. So it was always a reason for it. It was, I didn't tell him where I was, so he feels insecure. I was being sneaky with my phone, so he's insecure. The kids are... one of the big things was that I was undermining him in front of the girls. Because if he overreacted, I would kind of go, "You can't overreact to them." And I'd kind of be minding them. You know,
yeah,
because
of course, that
kids,
happens.
of course
yeah,
you do.
Yeah.
But he would say, "I'm undermining him and I'm turning the girls against him." So there was always a reason for it. And it was usually my fault. So I had made him do that or work at it. Because every job he's ever had. He's the best person they've ever had in the company, and he's been overlooked for every promotion, and it's a disgrace. Like, he's fucked over by this one and that one. In between. He's really not that clever a man.
Yeah.
He's very good at getting a job, he just can't hold on to one.
Yeah.
You know? So, but he's convinced he's the best in the world. Nobody's as good as him. You know, if somebody else gets a promotion, it's because there was an affair happening or something underhanded. It was never because they're better than him. You know, never because they deserved it. you know, because he is the best. You know, he genuinely believes he's...
As they do.
Yeah,
as they do.
He believes there's nobody like him. He believes he's the best looking man in the world, the most intelligent man in the world. Like, he genuinely does. Yeah, it's a bit mad.
And then, did you go on and marry him?
Yeah, we did. We set a date.
Can you shut that door because it's so loud now?
We set a date, and there was a couple of blow-ups, so I cancelled it.
Right.
And then we set another date, and then we went ahead and got married. But it took a long time to get there. Like, we didn't get married until 2013. We were separated by the end of 2017.
Okay.
So it took me a long, long time to agree. But I thought it will calm down. Everything will... Like, I suppose I was so broken down at that stage. And you're so in the bubble. Like, look, when you get out and you look back, you think, that was insane. Like, why did I believe any of it? Even down to, like I said, we were on holidays. He tried to convince me he thought he had dementia. Because I kept going... Kevin, you don't recall things how they've happened. Like, he would say something or do something and I'd say, you can't do that. And he'd go, I didn't say it. And I'd be like, you actually did. And then I was effed in the head because I was recalling something in a completely fabricated way. And it even got to the point where Ellen, the eldest girl, was taking notes of the things he was saying to her because she kept doubting what was true and what wasn't. Because he'd have her convinced, you must be on drugs or something. That didn't happen. Do you know what I mean? So we were on this family holiday and he was like, Claire, I'm very worried. I think there's something wrong. So he was very convincing. And I spent that whole holiday then worried. We're going to go home. We're going to get to the doctor and there's something seriously wrong. And I've been here arguing about his recall. Do you know what I mean? So there was always something and it was always
like
my
he
fault.
Wanted you to feel sorry for him. Oh my God.
Always
God
feeling
help
sorry
me.
for him. Yeah. So he was bullied in school apparently. He was bullied at home. He was bullied in the workplace. Like, he's forever been the victim. Always been a victim. But the reality is, I don't believe he's ever been a victim. You know, maybe home wasn't great because home is a bit nuts. But I don't know, was it what he said? Like, he said his dad was very violent to them. I don't know. I saw him angry. I never saw him violent. So I don't know. But yeah, he was always a victim. Yeah. And people from school have said to me since we've separated that he was horrendous to people in school. He was never... being bullied, he was the bully, you know, and people he worked with have said the same to me, said working with him was an absolute nightmare. So,
and at what age did you notice him being funny with Ellen? Like, was he, did he love her? Was there love there between him and her?
He put on a great act in the early days. He couldn't do enough for her. And same with Danielle, when she was small, he was really very engaged, wanted to help with everything, you know. Nothing was too much trouble. Like, he never avoided getting up at night time or, you know, any of those things. He was really tried to look good. Between the blow-ups, he tried to look good, I suppose. But I don't think there was ever a great relationship with either. I actually now don't think he's capable of caring really about anybody because I don't believe he ever cared about me at all. I think his purpose from the get-go was to absolutely torment me. I don't believe he ever cared about Ellen because the day we separated, that was it. He hasn't spoken to her since. And same with Danielle. He's had literally 2 conversations in the last 5 years with her. And now, like that, he will walk past her in the street. Yeah, so I don't believe he cared ever because I don't think you could. I don't think, like... I couldn't be kept away from my girls. Like, I couldn't. Like, I don't know any parent that genuinely wants a relationship with their children, has a relationship with them, and nothing will keep them away. But he does use the excuse that I was toxic, I turned them against him. Didn't happen.
Was he physical?
He was. Not to the point where he'd start with the physical. Like, he was physical in the fact he would drag me, he would spit at me, he would pull my hair, he would shove me. But he wouldn't kick me around like football, if that makes sense. You know, I wasn't battered black and blue, but I was very intimidated. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't like, and he'd say that to me. He'd tell me.
Do you know what you're like spitting, pulling hair, dragging? That's fucking disgusting.
Oh, it is.
But you're like, but it wasn't. You know, why do we minimise?
No, and we shouldn't minimise it. And he used to even say to me, it's not like I'm kicking the shit out of you. You know what I mean? Like, you're blowing this out of proportion. Like, but there was times where I'd be sitting on an armchair and a glass would come at me and it'd hit the wall beside me. You know, and he'd done that to Ellen as well in the past. Or he'd pour glasses of water or Coke or whatever he had. He'd just throw it at you. Do you know what I mean? So you were aware at any moment something could happen. You know what I mean? Like, he'd put his fists through walls and things like that. Like, he'd be red in the face, angry. Like, so you knew, you were in fear. You were in fear. Even though, no, I can't say I didn't believe he'd go further, because every time it happened, I believed he'd go further. And I would be afraid to move. Like, there was days in the house. I remember one St. Patrick's weekend, Danielle was gone away. She was in first year in school. She'd gone to France for 5 days. Her first time away. Distraught at where she was going. It was at my mother's anniversary. I'm never good around that time anyway. But I wasn't allowed to be sad around the anniversary. He'd be like, oh, you take down the mood in the house. You know, oh, Jesus, here we go again. That's what you'd deal with. But myself and Ellen were in the house, and for 3 days solid, we weren't allowed to speak to each other because he kept blowing up at us. So she was in her room, I was in my room, and we just could not speak to each other. If he heard the floorboards move, he would charge up the stairs and start screaming again that we were plotting against him. Yeah, so even though he wasn't dragging us at that stage or kicking us around the house, he had us afraid to talk to each other for 3 months. That
control.
Yeah, and it was while Danielle was away. So I was worried about Danielle. I wanted to keep updates on Danielle, see how she was doing. And she was ringing me, giving me updates. And I was like, oh, everything's fine here, you know, everything. We didn't eat for those 3 days. We didn't go downstairs for those 3 days. And it got so bad because he kept blowing up. So he'd go down, he'd watch a bit of telly, play the PlayStation, he'd go on the phone, he'd chat to friends, he'd do whatever. And then next thing, he'd bolt back up the stairs and start screaming. You know, or if you tried to go to sleep, he'd be up in the room and you'd have the mattress picked up and you'd have you tossed onto the floor. So you couldn't relax. Sorry.
You are so strong. This is going to help so many people, because people think, like, I have to be honest, if Paul Kelly spit in my face, I wouldn't know what to do. Because to me, that is the worst.
But it's shocking.
Like,
you know?
yeah.
It just throws you. You don't expect it. And you don't expect the person who claims to care to hurt you. Do you know what I mean? You just don't expect it. And then when they apologise and say it was because X, Y, and Z, you want to believe that. You don't want to believe that this person, you don't even, your brain doesn't go, if you're not that evil, you don't think like somebody like that. Do you know what I mean? So it's, sorry. I am so sorry.
I'm going to punch you if you apologise again. Sorry, there's me being violent, which is saying I'm going to punch you if you say sorry again. You know, God, that's terrible. I shouldn't have said that. It's just as you said. It's that shock.
Yeah.
And the fact, as you said, that he wasn't leaving you with black eyes. He wasn't. But this is the control piece as well. This is not letting the outside world know what's going on in the home.
But I remember Danielle was only like months old, and a woman from across the road came over to the house one evening. And I thought she didn't like me. I didn't really know her. She moved in. I knew her husband, but I didn't know her because it was his house. She moved into his house. And she came over to the house one evening. Kevin wasn't there. And she was like, you know, Claire, is everything okay? If you ever need anything, you know, I'm only across the road. And I took offence that she had come to the house to offer a lending hand, because she obviously could hear what was going on from that. Because when I say he blew up, like, he was loud, like, and the house, like, would shake, like, and he'd be red in the face, and he'd be charging up and down the stairs, he'd be slamming door, like, his presence was well felt. And I took offence that she was coming to the door asking me if I was on, because at that stage I didn't realise what was going on, but she obviously saw it. You know, even though I knew the shouting was happening, but I didn't realise how bad it was. Do you know what I mean? Because it didn't happen overnight, and it didn't get that bad overnight. And you'd have bad days, and then you'd have 10 good days, and then you'd have a bad day, and then you'd have 10 good days. And as the time went on, you'd have 2 bad days, 9 good days, 3 bad days, 8 good, you know, and the gaps got smaller between it and the arguments got longer. So in those early days, I didn't recognise it at all. And I thought, how dare she? Who does she? Because he had me convinced she was, you know, somebody who didn't like me. And I was like, why doesn't she like me? And I was believing what he was telling me about her. But I would say he got a vibe from the way she was looking at him or something. So he already had me convinced this woman was a troublemaker. Do you know? And when she came to the door, I didn't take her seriously. And I regret not taking her seriously, because if I'd listened to her, things could have been a whole pile different. You know, maybe. I don't know. maybe I wasn't ready to hear it.
And
I don't
again,
know.
it's because there's no family around, and he's looking, going, well, this one actually could understands who I am a bit.
Yeah.
I need to now isolate Claire from her immediately.
Yeah.
And how I'm going to do that is plant a seed. Oh, she's a bit of a bitch. Oh,
Yeah.
she's a nosy cow. What I should look at, I don't like her.
Yeah,
I don't
and
think
that's
she
what it
likes
was
you.
like. You know, and I kind of felt like she was judging me every time I left the house because he had me convinced she didn't like me. Do you know what I mean? So I was paranoid by this woman. So when she knocked on the door, but now I look back and think she actually had no ill intentions knocking on that door whatsoever. But at that time, I was convinced she was the enemy. You know?
And at any point, are you in this, obviously you are later on to it, but are you in it and going, there's something really wrong here?
Because it was so gradual, and the good days were really good. Like I said, he'd get up with Danielle, he'd have, like, the good days were so good that, and he was so apologetic, and there was always a reason. It was always something I did or something that happened in work. I believed that was what, because I'd never lived that world. Like my household, even though obviously there was problems that I was oblivious to, but it was a really nice place to grow up. You know, we had the family holidays, we lived in a lovely home, there was a beautiful car in the drive, like we went to the seaside, like we had a lovely, like Christmas was lovely, birthdays were lovely, like we cooked a nice Sunday roast, like it was just a nice place to be. So I'd never been around somebody like that. So I really didn't understand it. I had no idea what it was. I had no inkling whatsoever. So when he said he was sorry, I was like, he is. He's begging and he's pleading and I'm an emotional person and I care a lot. Like, you know, when I'm looking, like I really do. Like I get very invested in people, and you know, if the girls are upset, I'm upset. If my friends are upset, I'm upset. Like I take on other people's kind of. Do you know what I mean? I care. So I felt that I could help him. I felt that he'd be better if this happened, if X, Y, or Z happened, things would be better. If I listened more, if, you know, we helped him upskill so he didn't get passed over the next time. You know, so I kept trying to fix things. Do you know what I mean? I know it's madness now, but at the time I didn't see it. And even on company nights out, I remember I went out one Christmas with him and got dolled up to the nines, really looking forward to it. It was a big company that was in Shannon at the time. They put out epic Christmas parties. Delighted to go. And I'd spent a bit of money on the outfit because we didn't have a huge amount, but I'd really invested in myself. I wanted to feel good. And we went to the event, and there was a couple of girls that weren't very nice to me at the Christmas party. I was like, Kevin, what happened? Like, I thought you worked with lovely people. Like, that's a bit weird, isn't it? I was like, they were sneering at me. They were making the Pussycat Dolls song, Don't You Wish Your Girlfriend was sung, and they kept coming over kind of lap dancing almost at me and being like really sneery and bitchy towards me, and you know, just not nice. You knew they didn't like you. And I was like, why the fuck, like I've never met these people, why don't they like me? And we went home and he was like, you made a holy fucking show of me. I was like, how did I make a holy show of you? And I was like, they just didn't like me. Like I tried to get on with everybody. And he said, well, that's just you, isn't it? People just don't like you. You know, so, but I've learned since, he used to badmouth me all the time inside work. I didn't know this at the time, but I did learn, and I've had screenshots and things sent to me. He literally, from the moment he opened his mouth and worked, he was bitching about, I was a controlling person, I was a bitch, I wouldn't let him do this. I was evil as far as everybody he worked with was concerned. So these people thought I was horrible. So they already had this idea, and so they were fighting his battle for him at the Christmas party. That's what was going on. But that caused him to battle with me even more. It's like, you've made life so difficult for me now inside work. I didn't get that promotion because of you and your behaviour at the Christmas party. So it was my fault. It's my fault. So I was like, what can I do to fix it? What did I do wrong? Like, I don't know, do I agree? I don't know. But he had me convinced I'm a very Marmite person, you know, and I grate on people, and some people just don't like me. So, and that was the reason. So, yeah.
And then at what point then do you start realising I'm in trouble here?
I remember kind of the Christmas previous. So the Christmas of 2016 was horrific. And he seemed to love picking fights over Christmas, because I love Christmas. I grew up with a great Christmas. I always wanted a lovely Christmas for the girls. And anything we looked forward to, so if we looked forward to a day out or a holiday, anything we looked forward to, we always tried to take the good out of it. So there'd always be an argument on important moments. You know what I mean? Like, even down to getting Danielle her communion dress. Like, you spent too much money. There'd be an argument over that. Everything was an argument. Do you know what I mean? When it was good times. So it was Christmas. It was really, really, really horrific. Christmas night was absolutely awful. He didn't stop for a second, didn't let up. Nobody in the house got any sleep. And this is the thing he'd do. He'd keep you up all night screaming at you. And the minute you fell asleep, he'd start screaming again. And I remember over the years, which is just the most unbelievable, you'd fall asleep and he'd literally pick me up and he'd put me outside the door and shut the door. And I'd be told to sit on the landing. And I wouldn't be allowed to go downstairs. And I wouldn't be allowed to make noise, because I wasn't to let the girls know that I was making a show of him again. So he'd put me outside the door. Like, who does that to somebody? And it got to the point where he started putting me outside the front door in the middle of the night. So it didn't matter what the weather was like. It didn't matter what was happening. I'd be put outside the door and I'd have to wait there for him to let me back in. Which is mad. And I was still there. So that Christmas was particularly hard. It had... And the run up to Christmas Day was hard. Christmas dinner, not so bad. Christmas night, horrific again. My nephew and his mother were coming around. She had lost her husband. Had she lost her husband the year or 2 years previous? She comes every Stephen's Day. So she'd lost her husband the year previous. His brother. So Brendan, the lad that I used to go on with, he had passed away. And... he had a nephew, and his nephew was only 2. And he was coming around to the house on Stephen's Day with his mother. And Kevin stayed up in the room. He wouldn't come out of the room. And I was like, you have to come down the stairs. Killian's here. He's opening his presents. We do this every Stephen's Day. Like, you know, this is what happens. And I was getting text messages on the phone saying, you've ruined my day. How fucking dare you? I can never have that time back with Killian. You're stealing this time. And I was like, well, Kevin, come down and talk to the child. Like, he's here waiting. And I was sitting in the corner of the sofa pretending to have a migraine. But I'd been up crying and acting all night. Couldn't keep my eyes open. Trying to pretend I'm okay. And, I think Kevin has a bit of a tummy bug or something, you know. But he's stamping at this stage around the bedroom. And I said to Killian, go on up and see if Kev John wants to come down and, you know, see if he's up to eating something. Because I couldn't let the child open the presents while he was upstairs, because he was going to go mental at me that he wasn't there for the moment the child was opening the presents. Needless to say, he wouldn't have known what was inside the gifts, because he played no part in getting it. Like, Christmas morning was a shock to him as it was the girls to anybody. He had no involvement whatsoever. But, and I sent Killian up, and he said, you can tell that cunt I'm not coming downstairs. And I was like, he'd never spoken like that in front of anybody. Like, Killian's mum was downstairs and she heard it, and she was quite like, you know, where did that come from? And I was like, he's had a really enough night, Katrina. I'd say he's not even like right. I'd say, you know, we need to check his temperature or something. I was making excuses, because that's what we do. You know, when somebody is that mental, we make excuses for, I say mental, like abusive, but we make excuses for their behaviour because you're embarrassed. Like, I was humiliated by the behaviour. So that Christmas kind of came and went. And the months beyond that were just horrific. Like, I would say if there was 5 good days in the following 6 months, that's as much as there was. Like, every day was hell. He'd come in from work, you wouldn't know whether he was going to be nice, okay, or in an absolute rage. You just had no idea what you were going to deal with. He'd come in, if you were upstairs, he wouldn't even do every step. He'd do every second or third step, and he'd be there, and next thing he's screaming in your face. Do you know what I mean? Like, you just didn't know what you were getting. And I went a full solid week in the June of 2017 where he didn't speak to me. Not one single word. He stormed around the house and he slammed stuff around, but he wouldn't say good morning. He wouldn't say good night. He would not speak to me. And I was like, what? And then it was just a silent treatment control thing. And I sent an email, you know, dear Deirdre from The Sun, but she's on this morning now. I sent her an email saying, I think the subject line was, and this is after 6 months of this is in the June. I said, I think my husband's abusing me. And I sent her the email and I detailed the last week. I didn't detail the years, I detailed the week I just lived. And she came back with a very long email explaining what exactly was happening. And a few days later, she came back with another email going, Claire, I've been thinking about you. which was a nice thing. I don't know if it was all from me. I think it was from her. Anyway. And she was giving me lots of resources, and I'd gone back to her and said, I'm in the south of Ireland, so lots of the stuff she said were UK based, not here. And I started Googling what she was saying to me. And I came across words like coercive control, narcissistic abuse, all that kind of stuff. And I went, oh my God. Like, I literally sat there going, this is what I'm living. Like, finally it made sense, because up until that point, I thought I was the problem. I thought I was making him like this. I thought I had done something wrong. And I was sitting there going, oh my God. And it all just started to become clearer and clearer. And in those 6 months, there had been times in that time where I discovered he had been having affairs, etc., etc. I now know that happened throughout the time I was with him. Like, that was, I couldn't count. I know 6. There's probably 60. Do you know what I mean? I smile about that because I realise, none of them were, like, he just used everyone. But anyway, so I sent her the email. She came back again with another email, and I'd Googled, and I went to my sister-in-law, the girl who had been around the house that day, and there had been a couple of moments else that she had spotted. She'd been in the car with us to Dublin one time. We were heading to an awards thing, and he was really, like, again, it was a nice day, so he had to take the good out of it. He had to argue the whole way up in the car, even though he was going to a concert. He wasn't even coming with me, but he had to take the good out of it. And we got out of the car, and she said to me, because she had also been subjected to the dad shouting, calling around to the house, all that. I just said, Claire, I saw Larry coming up that road today. That's his dad's name. I saw Larry in the car today. Like, that is so incredibly crazy. And I said, well, yeah, he does sometimes display little traits, but I played it down. And then she was in the house just before.
So she was saying that she saw the father
in him going up in the car.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because we were afraid to talk in the car. The tension in the car, even though nothing had happened, he was just ready to fly off the handle, and we could feel it. You know what I mean? Like, he'd walk into the house, the dog would scurper away because he could feel the tension from him. He didn't have to say it, you just knew it. And she said she saw that in him. And I said to him the following day, I said, even Katrina said she could see Larry in you. Like, this isn't me. Like, there's something not right here. And he lost it with me over that. And then there was another time she was in the house, and I'd other people over the years, like friends and stuff, one by one you kind of eliminated for different reasons. The isolation you talk about, but at the time you don't see it. And she was going towards the fireplace. I don't even know what she was doing. She was just going towards the fireplace, putting up a card, taking it out. I don't know. But he said something, and I went, he said that before. And he'd said it about one of my friends. And it was almost like he was trying to make her feel uncomfortable in the house.
Right.
Do you know? And I can't even remember the exact line, but it just triggered something in me. And I went, he's trying to stop her. He doesn't want her in the house. He wants her to be uncomfortable here. Because you could see her reaction. She was like, maybe I won't stay for the cup of tea. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas Killian was always in the house. I was very close to Killian. Her husband obviously had been very sick. When he passed, we kind of spent a lot of time with Killian because she went through a tough time. And so he was trying to push her out because she obviously was getting too close. And this was like the third time now she was aware life wasn't great inside the house. She'd seen with the girls, she'd said over the years, like, he's a bit hard on them, isn't he? So she'd seen little bits, so he didn't like that. He wanted her gone. And I went, this is weird. I said, he's not pushing her away. Like, I have a great relationship with her. I have a great relationship with the kids. She now had 2 kids at this stage, Killian and Lily. And I was like, I have a great relationship with the kids. Like, I adore them. I don't want to lose them. Do you know? So anyway, I sent this email and she came back. And then by the beginning of the August, so we'd gone throughout June, emails backwards and forwards. July, it was like the last 6 months, it was hell. And I called around to Katrina, and I'd said to the girls over those weeks, I said, I'm leaving, like, we're leaving. We're not staying here with him, like, it's ending. Because they had been begging me. They were like, we have to get rid of him. Like, this is not happening.
Wow.
Yeah, they were so, like, Ellen was like, I can't take anymore. She was really struggling. Mentally, she was struggling hugely. She'd gone through a very tough time in her teenage years with him. She's in a great, like, an incredible place now. But when I say she had to work very hard to get to the place she's in now, she genuinely did. Whereas Danielle, I think she still has a lot of work to do. But so they were in a bad place, and they were begging me to get him out of the house. They were like, we can't take any more of him. Because there was days where he was nice to them, and he was never bad to all 3 of us. But he was always like somebody's friend while he was attacking the other 2. So like, even down to Danielle, She was going into third year that September. So this was the August.
Yeah.
I called around to Katrina's house and I said to her, I'm leaving him. And she went, what? And I was like, yeah, I'm leaving him. Can't take any more of him. And I told her what was going on. And up until that point, I'd never, other than that email, I'd never said a word to anybody. None of my friends, none of them knew what was happening. Because I was humiliated. I thought, I'm doing something wrong here. I've made him like this. I've done something. Like, if I was better, he'd be better. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you even think like that? But he had me thinking like that. And I didn't understand his behaviour. I didn't understand the issues he had. I didn't understand. But I told her anyway, and I told her what was going on. And she goes, yeah, I kind of guessed that about him. You know, I got that feeling. So it was no great surprise to her. But we're getting close to the end of August. Danielle's getting ready to go into third year. Things had been tough. And I said to him the 2 days before she went back to school, I said, tomorrow evening, you know, could you please come home after work in a calm, nice way? I'll make a really nice dinner. I want Danielle to start third year in a nice, positive kind of way. You know, she's had a tough time of it recently because of the arguments in the house. I said, so can we just keep things calm just for one night? And I pleaded with, worst thing I ever fucking did. I shouldn't have opened my mouth. I genuinely shouldn't have opened my mouth. Danielle's up in her room the day before she should go back to school. She's doing a live on Facebook. There used to be this beauty group on Facebook and girls used to do lives with their makeup and stuff. And you see the makeup on her today. She still works in beauty now.
Yeah, gorgeous.
And she was doing a live. He came in the door, didn't even hit the steps, into her room and starts screaming at her. She's on the live, right? Ellen's phone was there as well. So Danielle used to be using her phone for the live, but she'd have also another phone for the music and answering the questions and all that. So she had Ellen's phone and she had her phone. And he was like, what the fuck are you doing? And she told him. And he started turning it off. And this is all being recorded on the live on Facebook. I know.
God.
And, sorry, it was Ellen's phone he was turning off and the phone recording was still there. So it was all there. Everybody could see it. Everybody could hear it. And next thing he storms out of the room and she shuts down the live, right? He comes back in, takes the second phone. So both phones are gone. I still have my phone. And he's like, you didn't answer a call to me, you disrespectful, this, that and everything else. She goes, I didn't see a call from you. The phone's here. And then he said to Ellen, why didn't you answer your phone? She goes, you didn't ring my phone.
Yeah.
Like there was no calls from him. And she goes, and Danielle has my phone. And he goes, oh, how convenient. You gave her the phone. Like, this is the craziness you're dealing with. And this meant we were up arguing. He was screaming at us till gone 4 o'clock in the morning, the day before she was about to go back to school, just to make things as difficult as possible. But I started getting messages on Facebook going, Claire, what happened? What's happening in the live? Do you know, should we report this to the guards? Because there was thousands of people. There was 7,000 people on that live. It was Beauty Box was the name of the group.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember it on Facebook, but 2 girls set it up and it went absolutely bananas. There was 7,000 people had viewed this live. And I started getting messages going, we've seen what's happened. My instant reaction was to delete the fucking video. I should never have deleted the video, should have kept it. People did screen record it. We to this day have screen recordings of it. But and that was it. I was like, that's it. Can't do this. The man is dangerous. Like, we cannot do it. And that was September, and by the middle of November I was away from him. So it took a couple of weeks.
How did you get away?
Well, it kind of was slow and it was fast at the same time. So from the August, I knew I was going. I knew I was done. That was it. End of. There was no more. And I'd gone over to the UK in October for some awards thing. I got over with Katrina, the sister-in-law. Like I told you, we get on really well. And I'd gone over with her. And Ellen and Danielle were at home. They were in school. And I got a call from him and he was really nice on the phone to me the day I was coming home. It couldn't have been nicer. And I was like, oh yeah, you know, I was telling him what time I was flying into Shannon, blah, 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 blah. And he said, oh, I'm going to go in and collect Danielle from school, you know, give her a surprise, because she was getting the bus in now to Limerick at that stage. And I said, oh, that's nice, she'll love that. And he said no more, like everything was fine. And then next thing I got a call from Danielle going, Ellen's gone. And I went, what do you mean Ellen's gone? And she goes, she's not here. And I said, well, she's probably gone to one of her friends, like, you know, ring her. And she goes, no, she said, the keys are in the front door, like she's dropped them in the letterbox, her keys. Now, what do you mean her keys are in the letterbox? And then he gets on the phone going, you know, oh, she was very disrespectful this morning. And I went, what happened? And even in those first couple of hours of talking, because our flight got delayed, we're stuck in Stansted, longest wait of our lives. And Katrina's shopping around Stansted, and I'm not telling her the drama that's unfolding. And it transpired anyway. He had decided, Danielle went to school, he blew up at Ellen, and he kicked her out of the house. Told her she couldn't stay in the house anymore. She was a freeloader, she was this, she was that, she was everything. One of her friends had left some of her belongings in Ellen's room because she was moving from home to somewhere else, and there was a box with books and a few other bits in it, and he threatened to throw them out the window. He said, I'm going to throw them out the window, I'm going to burn them, I'm going to do this. If you don't get the fuck out of my house right now, you're gone. Bear in mind, this was not his house, my house. So he couldn't do that. But he kicked her out anyway. And then I said to him on the phone, I was like, Kevin, did you kick Ellen out of the house? Because he was like, God, she's just gone. I don't know where she's gone. She's, that one's a bit mad in the head, that one, isn't she? I was like, no, she's actually not. Like, she's the most level-headed person you will ever meet in your life. Like, she's not emotional. Like, she is emotional, but she doesn't get emotional like me. She works for Rape Crisis Midwest. Like, she's a counsellor. Like, she's the most level-headed person you'll ever meet in your life. I was like, she's not a head case. Like, she's absolutely not. And anyway, I said, Kevin, if she's not at the house, by the time I get to the house, you're out of the house. Go find her and get her back right now. Because I was terrified, but I was like, get her back. And I got back to Shannon. There was no Ellen, right? Katrina's getting out of the car because her car was parked in our drive. I live 7 minutes from the airport, like you, very close. And so her car was parked in my driveway. He had picked us up from the airport. She was getting her stuff out of the boot of the car. And he was like, jeez, I think I might freeze tonight. Yeah. It wasn't that cold, but he was saying it to wind me up because he knew Ellen was out somewhere. He didn't know where she was. And I didn't know where she was. But anyway, we found her. I brought her home. He stayed another couple of days beyond that. So this was the end of October. He stayed a couple of days literally beyond that. And I had him removed by the guards from the house because he literally blew up, went insane. And while he was in the shower, I removed every key that he ever had in gym bags. Like, I just took them all. And he blew up. I called the guards and they took him out of the house. And I never let him back in. Yeah. Even to collect his stuff, I didn't let him back in. I boxed up his stuff and I put it out in the garage, and I said he can go to the garage to take stuff. He's not allowed to step foot back inside the house. That was it. Didn't let him back in. I couldn't. Like, he was a head case, I couldn't let him back in. But yeah, so that's how it ended. So it was quick in the end. Yeah. But it was slow getting there.
Because you knew it was either going to be him or Ellen.
Well, I knew it was going to be him or Ellen. And I knew at that stage, everything he did was a considered decision. I knew by then none of this was an accident. None of this was just anger. The man didn't have anger issues because he was able to be red in the face screaming at me and then step outside the door and be the nicest person in the world. In the bubble of it all, I couldn't see that. But when it came towards the end and I started to realise the behaviour and understand it, it was like a light bulb moment. I went, oh, that's him. That's exactly what he does. Like, it finally made sense. And I realised no matter what I did, he was never going to be a good person. He was this evil, bully, abusive person. And that's who he is. And to this day, that's who he is. And I can't make him be a good person. You know, you can't change somebody, but you can't make somebody be a good person. And he's just not a good person. That's it. You know, that's his personality. That's who he is. And he doesn't believe there's anything wrong with him. So therefore, he's never going to change who he is.
Did he ever ask to come back?
Oh, absolutely. I still haven't watched, what was that movie? The Greatest Showman. Yeah. I've still not watched that movie because shortly afterwards that movie came out and he started sending me clippets from songs and snippets from that and telling me how lonely he was, etc., etc. Little did I realise at the time he was already seeing somebody else. Wow. Even when he had moved somebody else in, he was still kind of trying to come back. But no, I blocked him literally everywhere. I blocked him LinkedIn, emails. I blocked him. When I went to court to deal with family court, divorce, no communication. Just none. No, because I knew who, I could see him. He'd walk into court and I could see what he was. And the minute I could see it, there was no going back from it. Do you know what I mean? It was like, I could see him. And up until that point, I didn't see it.
Were you afraid of him after that point? Was there nervousness seeing him in court and stuff?
Oh God, yeah. I used to be rattled. There was one day I came out. No, there was more than one day, but there was many a day I come home. I'd be exhausted, number one, because it takes everything in you to get ready to go to court and you know you're going to face them. And I'd know he'd be in front of the judge, telling lies, talking rubbish. And in those situations, you don't get a chance to defend yourself. You just have to suck it up. And I know that sounds really bad, but if you've ever been through the family court situation, it's a very tough place to be. What did he want? To not lose control.
Did he want access to the girl?
Oh, he did. And that was never denied. And he got it. And then he didn't want it. So he got it. And he goes, oh, no, it's fine. And the judge said, what? He goes, oh, no, I don't need the access anymore. And the judge went, Kevin, what did your daughter ever do to you for you to be so mean to her? And he was like, oh, no, it's just too much hassle. And he said, no, I'm not letting you away with that. He goes, I want you to see her, even for 2 hours every Friday evening. And he was like, oh, I can't afford the petrol to get there. This was his thing. I can't afford this. I can't afford that. Which was pure and utter lies. The man's been holidaying feckin' multiple times a year. Like, there's fear of him, like, but he's a great liar. And the judge said, well, can you go to the house? And I said, absolutely, I'll leave the house. He can spend the 2 hours with her. He doesn't have to spend any money, or I'll drop her to him, or whatever works. I'm happy, whatever. And so the judge gave him the 2 hours every Friday evening. He turned up once. That was it. But once the court order was in place for Danielle to be available between 5 and 7 on a Friday, I had to have her in the house. I couldn't not have her, because if he turned up and I wasn't there, I'd be in trouble. Yeah. Now, he never got in trouble for not showing up. He doesn't have to show up, but I have to make sure she's available. So I had to keep her like that for 9 months until I could get back in to get that taken away. So everything was about control. Everything was about control. The dragging out of the court, like, everything was like, oh, she hasn't brought the right paperwork. When in fact he wouldn't have the right paperwork submitted. He changed solicitors every single time we went to court. So every time we went in, solicitor was like, look, I've only been assigned this morning. I'm not up to speed. We're going to have to come back. And then I'd see him arguing with those solicitors, because he'd be looking for things, and solicitor would be going, that's meant, you can't do that. And he'd be like, well, of course I can. So when we got to the divorce in the end, he represented himself, because there wasn't a solicitor in the land that could do the great job he could do, because like I said, he's better than everybody else. So yeah, and he done a terrible job with it. Terrible job. He could have had a much better day if he'd had proper advice. Really? But it was terrible. Yeah, no, the judge was very good to me on the day, I have to say. And a couple of months previous we'd gone in, I thought the divorce was going to go ahead. It turned into a disaster day. Went home, bawled my eyes out, couldn't believe it hadn't gone ahead. But it was right to go ahead the day it went ahead, because he was so ill prepared. And that absolute disaster of a day prepped me for the real day. So I knew exactly what the judge was looking for. Because the judge is like, it is a lot about the mood. It's not about the right and wrong. It's about how they perceive you. Like, right and wrong is very irrelevant to the family court situation. And I had everything ready, and my barrister was incredible. But I had a barrister, I had a solicitor, he had nobody. They were females. He didn't like that. So he was like, you know, when they were asking questions, like, I don't like your question. The judge was like, I have to ask you questions. Like, so he was able to see snippets of, and the longer I've been away from him, the more brazen he's become. And I don't know if it's because the girl he's with now, he gets away with more with, or I don't know why, but he's outwardly more abusive than he was when I was with him. Like, I was ordered to meet him in a hotel to sort out things with him, you know, around schooling and stuff with Danielle throughout these. So these were always things we had to do, like stupid things, meet him in a hotel. And I met him, and he sat down and instantly started shouting at me. Like, he'd done that in a hotel where people knew him. And when the ladies came over and asked if I was okay, because he was shouting at me, and he went absolutely off the charts, insane at her, he ended up getting removed from the hotel. Do you know what I mean? Now, he wouldn't have done that when we were together. So he's got crazier over the time. So I don't know why. Maybe, well, they do escalate. They do get worse. And he has got worse over time. But even now, he's worse. Like, he's outwardly abusive. Like, so in the courtroom, he didn't control himself enough to not.
See, he lost control of you, so that's why.
Yeah.
Probably that he's now losing his mind when he.
Yeah, and he kept going to all the Garda stations locally, making complaints about me. Unfounded complaints. And this is the thing I really can't cope with the courts. He reported me to TUSLA over and over and over again, to the point they came out to the house, there was interviews, and they got to the point where they went, the next time he contacts us, you're not going to hear from us. We're just going to shut it down. We can see this for what it is. Danielle had to change schools, because he rang her principal. He told her principal. So the principal had to then make a report, because they have a duty of care. So he had to report me to TUSLA. He told the school that I was basically running a brothel from the house, and he was concerned for Danielle. I mean, like, couldn't be further from the truth. The child was humiliated. She left school. She left that school. She went to another school. He rang the chaplain in the school. We were debating over the fact he didn't want to pay maintenance, didn't want to pay towards school, didn't want to pay towards classes, nothing, didn't want to pay anything. control thing again. And he rang the school chaplain. This was in the October. And he said, look, I know her mother won't bother getting her the things she needs, like pencils and copies and stuff. Would you mind sorting them out for her? Surely the chaplain should have said to him, you're working full time. Would you not bloody get them?
Yeah.
But anyway, she pulled Danielle aside. Said, Danielle, is everything okay? Do you need? Danielle was mortified. Because kids don't want that happening. And if it's happening, they don't want to even know it's happening.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she was humiliated. Like, absolutely. And that's what he done. So he always rang people complaining about me.
God.
Went to all the Garda stations. And I kept getting, are you harassing him? Are you at his front door? I was like, I haven't gotten anywhere near him. Like, there was a time he made a complaint about me when I wasn't even in the country. Like, my car was parked in place. So he was like, oh, I saw her here. She said this to me. Wasn't in the country. Couldn't have said it to him. But he never got into trouble for making non-stop false allegations. I had to go into court, into the guards over and over again. And one time he took out the way you have the safety orders, you get them straight away. You go into court and go, I'm fearing this is happening. Yeah. You get a safety order. He got a safety order. And he said I had rang his boss or I'd done something. I don't even know. Over the years, he's made lots of wild allegations. Never got a protection order because there was never a reason to make the complaint the first time. But when you go in and defend yourself and they realise it was taken out wrongly, there's never, you can't make false complaints. Like, there was never a thing about that. He's just done it over and over again. And so he took out the safety order and there's a 2-page document that you're meant to get. And I got 1 page. Now, this was in the early days. I didn't know how these things worked. So I got the 1 page and I thought, it's a safety order. What the fuck? And I got a call from Ennis Garda station telling me that he had taken out. So he'd gone to court, he got it. They rang me and goes, Claire, there's a safety order, just letting you know it's going to come in the post. You're going to get it in the next few days. So they have to advise you straight away in case something happens between them taking it and you finding out. And I thought it was somebody he had asked to make the call. I didn't think it was a guard that had rang me at all because it was so fabricated. Like, it made no sense to me. It come from nowhere. And I was like, this can't be right. So I rang back in a Garda station. I said, do you have a such and such working there? And they were like, we do. And I said, and who's his superior? Because I think he's after I was convinced I was after getting a prank call or somebody was just trying to make me scared. Because at this point, I obviously hadn't been in court. I wasn't aware of the allegation. I hadn't got the letter. I just got this call out of the blue. Anyway, I did get the letter and it was just 1 page, not 2 pages. And on the second page of it, it says, no contact digitally, so no contact on Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. And on a Facebook or on an Instagram post, and it's probably still there to this day, it was Danielle was heading back to school and I was saying, how proud I was of her and how much, she'd grown and blah, 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 and big difference between here and whatever. Anyway, it was just like, a very proud mammy moment, like, she's going back to school. And he liked that post, right? And then he had sent me like a blank DM, just like a dot, like a blank DM. And I responded going, Kevin, if you want a relationship with Danielle, then talk to her. Nobody's stopping you, because he still hadn't spoken to her at this stage. And I was like, nobody's stopping you. Like, she'd only love to chat to you, And he said when he was leaving that night, he said, without that bitch of a mother, I'll be a much better father. Brilliant, like non-existent. So I was like, if you want a relationship with her, speak to her. That DM was a breach of the safety order. So he now goes back to Ennis. She's breached the safety order. So he liked that and sent the DM for me to react. Yeah. Which I didn't know at the time.
So clever.
Hindsight is such a great thing, isn't it? And you're not equipped with this stuff when you go into the family. You don't understand how dirty people can get. And I had no idea this could happen. So he goes back to his court saying, she's breached safety order. I want her arrested right now. And they rang me and they said, we believe there might be a technical breach of the order. What do you mean there's a technical breach? I was like, he actually winded me up. Jeez. And I went to Ennis and I was like, lads, this cannot be the case. Yeah. I walked in the door and I was like, lads, what are you talking about? Showed them showed them the message I'd sent. I was like, and they goes, yeah, but that could be considered a technical breach. They goes, we're going to have to go back to the court and get information off them and find out if it's a technical breach. So they went to the court clerk, they got more information there. And then the sergeant in Ennis said, no, domestic violence, we cannot have zero tolerance. Anybody who breaches an order has to be brought in, has to go in front of the judge. Right? So I get a call back from Ennis going, Claire, we have to arrest you. What the fuck? Like, I was inside in work. I was distraught. I rang Clare Haven I rang Adapt House. Like, I rang everybody I could think of, going, what can I do here? And they were like, Claire, you're just going to have to present to the Garda station. You're going to have to go through the motions. So I rang back the Garda station anyway, and I was like, lads, I have to go to Dublin in the morning. I had to thing and work. I was like, I have to go in the morning. I'll be back by 4 o'clock. Can I do that? Because I can't miss this. And he was like, yeah, come in to me at 4 o'clock tomorrow. And I was on my way back down the motorway. And the guard, in fairness to him, he was really, really decent about it. He rang me and he said, Claire, I'm not going to be there when you get here at 4. He goes, but I am back in the morning. He said, we're taking all prisoners from Ennis to Limerick Court tomorrow morning at 9. Like, and he goes, and I'm going to have to bring you. So you can't meet me in Limerick. You're going to have to come to Ennis. We're going to have to bring you to Limerick. He goes, and I'll talk you through everything and blah, blah, blah. And then he rang me back again. He goes, Claire, actually turn up at about 8:15. He said, I'll drop you into Limerick and we'll let the rest of the prisoners go on their own, because he recognised what was going on at the state.
Oh my God.
To go down, I had to get arrested and get driven to the court in Limerick. And again, in fairness to the guard, they had prisoners behind glass here, and he left me sit over here next to him, because again, he could see what was after happening. So they dealt with the prisoners, and because it was a family matter, thank God they cleared the courtroom, because up until that point the courtroom was full.
Yeah.
But you're brought in like a prisoner. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've done absolutely nothing. Like, technically, I had responded, which is a technical breach, but there was no malice, there was no bad. There wasn't like, you know, you're a terrible father. Yeah. There was not one bad word in it.
Oh my God.
And I had to get in front of the judge, and I had to be bailed until a hearing. And that time, and there was 5 months between that and the hearing, and I was literally afraid to walk outside the door, because any moment he'd go, she walked past me in the street and called me a bitch. Do you know what I mean? That's how, and I would have been straight inside. I would have been arrested, that would have been it. Like, that's what I was living with. So that's what he was doing over and over and over again. But I realised after that how serious the safety order was. So from my point, there was no contact.
Yeah.
But I didn't realise, I didn't know. So yeah, he had me arrested, had me and then he was able to go into court and go, I've even had to get out a safety order. I've even had to do this. So it was always ammo to prove that he was just this poor person and I was this terrible person. So that's how the whole separation, the divorce went on. And it was literally 5 years of that, backwards and forwards. But in the end, the sergeant at Ennis Court, or in Ennis Station, contacted me. And he brought me in and he said, Claire, you know, Kevin's behaviour is quite erratic. You know, we can see the escalation here. You know, he comes into us, we can see how he's behaving. And he said, we would categorise you as high risk. And at this point, I had a safety order because he had verbally abused me in the courthouse the previous time I was there, with myself and Danielle. And so I'd taken out a safety order because I was like, no more am I taking this from him. And I was never rushing to get a safety order because I thought, he's gone now, I don't need it. And I nearly felt like it was a waste of the court time. It was, and I also didn't want to be in court any more than I was there. I was there over 30 times in the 5 years. Like, you do not want to be there any more than you're there. It's not a pleasant experience. But I took out the safety order and they said to me, you know, we would be concerned for your safety. So, you know, if he does contact you, we've contacted Shannon, you know, they're aware. If he does make any contact, let us know, because we categorise this as high risk. You know, he has all the behaviours of somebody who might do something terrible. So I went back in, armed with that from the sergeant, into the family court with the safety order, asking to get a protection order put in place and kept in place. And I said, I just wanted one for 2, 3, you know, a while, that it would just, if we severed that contact, he might cool down in that time or stop being so angry, because he was furious that I was getting away. He was furious that I was ending it. He was furious that I could see him for what he was. Like, he was losing control and he wasn't enjoying it. And the judge said to me, when I said what the sergeant had, and I had a letter, and she said, that's criminal. It's not family courts. And I was like, but that's the protection order. That's why I need it. And she goes, well, no, I'm not granting it to you. Wouldn't give me the fucking protection order. So at the moment, there's no protection order. There's no safety order. But touch wood, he stayed away. And the guards have said to him, if he makes another complaint that's false, they will do him for wasting police time. So he is afraid.
About time.
But it's taken all that. But the amount of women and men that go through this, the system is used to continue the abuse. And there's nothing in place to stop that. And I get why a safety order, you have to be able to get it immediately. But there are so many people taking advantage of them.
And that's what, I'm sorry, Cliff, was it Paul? Paul? Yeah. Could you just check my phone there? Because I didn't give Cara my address. Carl Broderick. Because he's coming to do that thing. The yoga. Carl's coming with me, sorry. Nora Casey said to me that in Ireland we are so good and people are so good at getting people out like that.
Yeah.
When you need to get them out, we get them out.
Yeah.
But it's what we do with them in the long term. Like, what support is offered to you long term. That protection order.
Yeah.
You know, that barring order. Like, long term, you going, like, I don't know what the courts are like in Ennis, but like Dolphin House in Dublin is not fit for purpose.
No, it's the same in Ennis. It's shocking. And I got to a point where there was one judge had got the measure of him and was taking no more of him, and he retired. There was a new judge, and I was like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
Back to the beginning. But his brother's the same. He spends more time in Ennis Court than he does ever with these children. He has children by 2 different mothers. He's actually gone to Limerick prison for not obeying what he's told to do. Doesn't care.
Yeah.
Doesn't care. Do you know? So, yeah.
And how are you today?
Well, I'm obviously very emotional, but I'm a very emotional person.
Yeah.
I'm really good. And I know I'm emotional, but I'm actually really good. Like, where I was, say, the end of 2017 to today, they're worlds apart. Like, they're absolutely worlds apart. I still struggle to trust. Like, I still struggle. Like, I just struggle. I struggle with men massively. Emotional again. I hate that he's had me feeling unable to feel that when somebody says something nice, they mean it. Like, I don't believe it. But I am good. I'm emotional saying it. But I am good. I mean, work-wise, things are good. The girls are good. Like, life is good. You know what I mean? We're in a good place. But I just don't know if I'd ever let the guard down enough to trust somebody ever again.
That hopefully will come with time.
It might come. If it doesn't come, it's fine. I just don't like that I've been left with that. Like, I'd like to not have that feeling. Do you know what I mean? Like, I hate that he's had that much control and that much power. Like, I feel like I've gained back so much, but I haven't gained that back yet. But I probably will. It probably will come. But it's hard because I did trust him. I thought he was brilliant. And I was so wrong. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, I'm such an emotional person.
Such a poignant point of your life that you're talking about, and as I said, it's the loss of that girl in Spain that he killed her. It was the loss of that woman down in, down where we are, like in Donamead. Like, he killed her. Like, it's absolutely mind-boggling that the amount of people, and I'm just going to say it, the amount of mothers with sons out there who involved themselves. You're not good enough. Yeah. You're not good enough.
And that's what I had from my mother-in-law. She was not nice to me at all. Like, and when Danielle was weeks old, like, you're in a vulnerable position when you've just had a child. And to have another woman tell you you're a horrible person, you're a terrible mother, you're a terrible partner, like, you're just bad, that's hard to take, and you've nobody around you to say, that's not right. Do you know what I mean? So I had no positives. I was just hearing the negatives. So I'm lucky, like, even though I am an emotional person, and mentally I do actually quite well. I've never struggled with mental health, even though I am an emotional person. But I've never struggled. But if I was, like, she could have tipped me over the edge of it. Like, the stuff she was saying to me, I wouldn't say to somebody I didn't like. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They remind a new mother. Like, new mothers are vulnerable at the best of times. They're going through enough, but she was just...
I just think how we let them away with it, like how people, family let them away with it, like, and mainly it is mothers, it's
women in general though, and I know this sounds very bad, but how many women will fight a man's corner who's not doing right by his children, or who's not doing right by his ex, or who's not doing... Do you know what I mean? We fight their corner. Like, personally, I haven't had to do it, but how many women do you know will fight their corner and go, oh no, the ex is horrible. That's why he doesn't see the child. The ex is a psycho. She's this. Well, if she's a psycho, shame on him for leaving his children 24/7 with her. Because I'm telling you, I wouldn't leave my children with a psycho. Do you know what I mean?
So true.
So shame on you. But women defend men all the time that don't do right. Do you know? I even know, the girl Kevin's with now, like, she's living with him and she'll defend him till the cows come home. Like, do you know what I mean? She thinks, even though she knows there's a very bad side there. The girl is afraid of her shadow. Like, it's so, I can see it in her now, but she'll defend him. Yeah, 100%. Do you know? And she'll say it out loud, oh, he has no relationship with Danielle because Claire stopped it. Never stopped it. Wouldn't have stopped it. I do say now, though, I am delighted he doesn't have it with her. I was upset in the early days because I felt really bad for her. Nobody should deal with that kind of rejection from their dad. But as time went on, and as bad as things evolved, you know, I kind of went, she's actually so much better without him. Do you know? So he actually done us a favour. He thought he was doing damage by doing it, but actually he done us the only good thing he ever did. That's nice. The only good thing. Do you know?
And see, that's the thing, like, and, you know, I think there's lots going on about Tusla at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to, for me, it's very hard to read into things. And I did share something last week about what's happening with Tusla. And when it's very far right saying it, it's very hard to believe. Do you know what I mean? But also at the same time, like Amy from Stop Domestic Violence said to me, but Tusla are there to help. Tusla, like the teacher saying, you know, there's trouble there, but yeah, that was on the wrong side of it. It was being done against you. But they have to get involved. Oh, here's Carol. They have to get involved because they can't leave kids in those situations.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really it's a scare, but I'm so proud of you. And as I said to you, when I look on your Instagram, it's not, it's real life. It's there. It tells you, like, it's just that initially when I'd look at your Instagram, I'm like, oh my God. And then you go, boom, domestic violence. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, I know. Because I am a genuinely positive person.
Yeah.
And I do love life. It's as emotional as I am. I do love life. Like, I have a great group of friends.
Yeah.
Like, it's not massive, it's small, but it's really good. You know, they are family to me. You know, my sister-in-law's family to me. The girls are incredible. Like, they're doing really well. Ellen has just finished UL. Danielle is going into third year doing business and marketing. She has her own business as well with the brows and the makeup, and then obviously she's a co-owner in Beauty by CD, so we own that business.
So what is Beauty by CD? Tell me.
So that's our own beauty business. So we started this just before lockdown, and I suppose I was working full time, and I've skilled up, and I have a better role today than I ever had in work, and I'm earning more than I ever earned, but I still needed more because I'm a single income household, 2 kids in third level education, so I had to do something to try, and there's only so many hours in the day, so I thought I'd create something that I can have an additional income. So we created Beauty by CD. It's a range of beauty products that we're growing all the time. We have like a handful of products right now, but we have another one coming in a couple of weeks' time, another one for Christmas. So it's doing really well. It's online only at the moment. But we introduced a product called Sun Drops. It's done really, really, really well. Our drop that we had in March, which was anticipated to keep us going till Christmas, is just about sold out. You know, like, we're doing really well with it. But we co-own it. 3 of us own it.
That's lovely.
Danielle does all the social media for it, and the website. Ellen built the website. So between us, we did it all. Ellen does all the design for the products. Like, it's a real labour of love between the 3 of us, and it was just so I could boost that income and secure our futures a little bit, because, you know, when you go from having a dual income household to having one, it's a bit of a shock, you know, and we would have had a similar income back in the day, but I've replaced that income now, so at least if I did meet somebody in the morning, I'm not relying on them for anything, you know, I'm fully self-sufficient, and the girls are, and so we're in a great place. I mean, I'm going out to Malaga now tomorrow to meet some friends for a few days, and then back to work on Tuesday. Like, do you know, life is good. Life is good. Yeah, we're very lucky. I'm touching wood, feel very lucky. You know, health is good, and other than just not trusting men too much. And I suppose it comes from, Ellen works in Rape Crisis Midwest. Yeah. You can only imagine how hard that is, you know, so it's hard to trust. It's hard. And I will trust again, because I do genuinely believe the vast majority of people are really good. And I can't let him muddy the waters for everybody else. And the sensible person in me sees that and hears that and knows that. But then I'm just, the guard is here, do you know, and I can't.
He's winning though with that guard.
That's the problem. And that's the battle I have. And that's why I get so upset over it. Because I know he's winning with that guard. But at what point do you go, I let it go? And end up risking it's too big a risk.
But it's not. because you know the red flags now.
That's the thing, and I keep telling myself that. You know them. I tell myself that, but then I'll still go out on a date and I'll be like, nah, or 3 weeks.
You and Amy need to get together, because Amy is like red flag, straight away. She gets it.
My list of people I can't date or won't date or wouldn't go near, it's growing by the day. Like, it's literally, somebody in work can say so, I'd be like, nah, wouldn't date somebody, like, nah, wouldn't do that. The list is just growing by the day, and I go from like, having a date with somebody, one thing, they only have to say one thing, or looking at that, gone, like, no tolerance whatsoever. So yeah, who knows?
It will come.
It will. I think it'll come. And I think, even this here now, just talking about it, even though it's quite emotional, it's good to get it out. It's good to get it off your chest. And sometimes people go, oh, do you ever get sick of talking about it? I don't talk about it all the time, number one. But number two, it's such a big deal. It's such a big thing. Yeah. Exactly. Like, would you tell somebody to be quiet about a broken bone they had, or a car accident they had? Yeah. Of course you wouldn't. Yeah. So why shouldn't I talk about the abuse I lived?
As I said to you, this is going to help so many people.
I hope so. I like, there was none of this pre-2017. Yeah. I wasn't looking for it, but there was very little. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I hope now that more women live, even if they do go into something like this, they don't live it for as long. Exactly. They will come out much quicker. Because it does leave its scars. There's no doubt about it. But I have talked to so many women that are way further out the gap than me, and their lives are, they couldn't have dreamed, they couldn't have imagined the lives they have today, and they're just worlds apart from where they were. And that helped me in the very early days when I started sharing the story. Women that were 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead were going, Claire, this is what happened. And even down to not seeing Danielle, the amount of women that said, oh, never again, didn't have contact, used this. He was textbook in how it all played out. And if I'd actually listened to them even more, I wouldn't have fallen into the traps and courts, because my brain couldn't go there, because I just couldn't imagine somebody would be that crazy. Yeah, Do you know what I mean? I know. So, yeah, but it was really helpful to hear that, because in those early days when you're getting those soppy messages going, I miss you, I have nobody, I have this, it was really easy to go, nah, not falling for that. Exactly. And remembering the conversations I had with people and the stories they told me, I went, nah, he was textbook in how he behaved. So he wasn't even a clever abuser. He was actually quite bad at it. Like, if I had any clue, he wouldn't have got away with it.
You didn't. Exactly. You don't in the moment.
Exactly. But I actually said to him the day of the divorce, I was like, the woman you met, when we first got together, is very different to the woman I am today. And I said, the woman I am today, you wouldn't stand a blessed chance with. And I felt very good telling him that, because the judge was asking me, is it over? Because you have to declare that it's completely over and whatever. And I was explaining that, and I was explaining it to him. Did not like it, So, and I felt very empowered saying that, because I'm telling you now, he wouldn't stand a chance with the person I am today, and he's equivalent wouldn't stand a chance with the person I am today. So, yeah, I've
good for you.
Strengthened that. Thank you.
On that note, Claire, we'll leave it there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming all the way up from Shannon to sit down and talk to me.
I have to get Barbie stuff, so
yeah. She'd be happy out.
She'd be delighted.
Best of luck with the business, with the girls. It's really exciting to see the three of you doing that together.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.